them out. It has been the legacy of this president's term, the prior president's term, a lot of bailouts for banks, for auto companies. A lot of that actually started long before either of these men came to office. You'd have to go back to the Carter years and Chrysler and that big bailout that a then Congressman Dave Stockman said no to. It made him a lot of friends in his locale. But your argument then...
Well, actually, if I might say, it did. I was running for re-election in my district in southern Michigan. Chrysler was the biggest employer in the district, or indirectly through its contractors. And I got the highest vote in the next election, 75% of the vote.
Because you stuck to your guns.
Because I stuck to my principle.
And you didn't play
overwhelmingly, the farmers in the district and the small businessmen in the district and the professionals knew that if they got in trouble, they weren't big enough to make a stink and to go down to Washington.
But things have switched, right? I mean, now we've gone from too big to fail to too many to not help. And it did set the very precedent you worried about.
Well, that's the speech that I gave. And, of course, I was very unpopular in the Michigan delegation. 1 out of 19 members. I voted against it. Lee Iacocca, as you might remember, was the CEO then.
He said some very choice things about you.
Very outrageous.
Those are the days he used some very choice adjectives.
But the point
Ronald Reagan liked it.
Yeah. The point was it was a mistake then. And it wasn't only a mistake for Chrysler because we just had to bail them out again 25 years later.
Was it a mistake for the banks?
It was a terrible mistake.
Why?
Because how can you have financial markets that are disciplined where reckless bets and where mistakes and errors go unpunished? You can't. Capitalism doesn't work unless...
But the argument for, and I agree with you, which should already concern you, but that they're too intertangled, Dave, that the likes of Jack Welch and the late, great Jack Kemp at the time, we had no choice because there was a financial abyss waiting, a free fall in all financial assets that if we didn't stabilize, the whole world would have...
I think that's an urban legend. I don't think it was close to true. I've been spending the last 2.5 years writing a book on this very topic that will be coming out next winter.
So if we had let him rip, what would have happened?
Well, take AIG, for instance. It was basically a holding company where they had written the CDS, these gambling wagers. It had no capital. The holding company was bankrupt, but all the insurance subsidiaries of AIG throughout the United States and the world would have been taken over and protected by their insurance regulator at the state or other country level. So therefore, we could have put AIG into bankruptcy. The only loss would have been the London rogue operation that was writing all of this crazy credit default swaps.
So we would have survived.
And yes.
And we'll never know. Like you said, we'll never know.
We know where the money went.
But now we have an environment where this is routinely done. Wall Street doesn't pop unless it gets a signal from the Fed it's going to rescue them.
Right.
Or the European Central Bank will do the same over there. What's become of capitalism?
We don't have capitalism left because the capital markets have been destroyed by the central banks. After all, interest rates are the price of money. They're the price of debt. And when you have the entire financial system trading off the last move, the last statement, the last whispered word of the central banks, it is no longer doing its job of allocating capital, discounting the future, making choices within the financial system. So if you don't have capital markets that are robust and working, how can you have a dynamic capitalism? I don't think you do. And so this is the ultimate fault of this money printing binge that we're on today.
So that's the chicken that's coming home to roost. And spell that out. Let's say we don't get to address this, we don't get serious. David Stockman's view of the world.
Well, everybody is making the wrong choice. We have massive speculation going on because the Fed is saying you can borrow overnight money till mid-2015.
I know, you don't buy that. What happens?
We're diverting capital to totally unproductive speculative uses.
So markets crash?
At some point they will.
Crash.
At some point they will. And then let's say what we're telling Washington. We're saying you're running $1 trillion deficit for the 4th year in a row, and yet you can borrow money almost for nothing. So why don't you just wait another year or 2 years? Who wants to take the fall? Who wants to take the political heat if you can borrow money for 70 basis points for 5 years, which is what they're doing now.
So we're building yet another bubble.
The Fed
we're building another bubble.
We're building a debt bubble.
And it burst, and then it's a depression?
Well, I don't know what you would call it. We've never been there before. We've never had a central bank that's printed this much money. We've never had central banks in the world.
But you don't think it can walk past the graveyard much longer?
I don't think so. I don't think, they can whistle this tune very much longer.
Okay, so if you have a lead suit, you would buy it. If you have cyanide pills, you would take them. I'm kidding. David Stockman, Ronald Reagan's budget director.